Let's do a tips for practice video. Look at the guns. Oh, I have no excuse for this shirt. I have 5 tips. One of them is like 2-in-1s for guitar players only, but whatever, or ukulele or a chord instrument. Okay, tip number 1. Spend half of your practice time on stuff you don't already know. A lot of times when you pick up your instrument, you start playing stuff that you already know by heart, and it's not something new or something different or something challenging. That's really the focus. Challenging. Stuff that you practice should be challenging, because if it's not challenging, you're not really expanding your horizons. You're not learning anything new, you're not progressing. So try to keep it to stuff that you don't already know, at least half of the time. Tip number 2, record yourself and then listen to it. It's gonna sound weird. You're gonna notice stuff that you didn't notice before. This blew my mind when I first tried it, and I'm like, whoa, there's so much stuff I need to work on. Try it out. Tip number 3, this is the 2-part one, specifically for chord instruments. Learn songs that you really like that have both lots of chords in them and chords that you're not good at. Make sure it's a song you really like, so you're gonna want to stick with learning it. The song that really helped me with this, Hotel California, it's got a ton of different chords, and I love that song. A more recent example is When I Was Your Man by Bruno Mars. It's got a lot of different chords in it. I was not expecting a pop song to have that many different chords, but it does. Definitely do it. If you don't know Hotel California, learn that if you're a guitar player. That'll get you up to speed. Tip number 4, there are 2 ways you could go about this. Mainly, I want to say try practicing with a metronome. If you have a metronome going and then you're playing, you kind of have to keep to that beat. It's not your own internal beat. Another way to go about having the same effect is record yourself playing and then play over that. Play along with it or sing with it. If you know how to play solos on the guitar and you can record yourself playing some chords and try playing solos over it, video coming soon on that, by the way, try doing that. It'll also get you closer to being able to play with another musician. I don't want to say practicing with a metronome is better than not practicing with a metronome, because it's kind of restrictive. I think it's best to do it occasionally just to see where you're at. And definitely if you're going to record something, have a metronome going, because that is really frustrating if you're another musician trying to play along with someone else's track and they don't have a click track for themselves, and then you're just kind of having to guess where they're at. That sucks. Play with a click if you're going to record, definitely. But I digress. Tip number 5. Practice frequency is more important than total practice time. Let's take about per week, for example. If you practice once per week for 2 hours, that's a total of 120 minutes. But if you practice 7 times per week, 10 minutes per practice session, that's only 70 minutes. So you would think the 2 hours once a week is better than the once per day 10 minutes, but it's not, and here's why. There's a little bit of neuroscience involved, so this is going to get a little bit heavy. When you practice your instrument or whatever, really anything skill-oriented, neurons fire in your brain, and you create a new pattern. That new pattern gets run through by the neurons in your brain itself. It's kind of like if you imagine water running through dirt to create a little pattern, and eventually, if the water runs through that pattern enough times, or the neurons through the pattern in your brain enough times, that gets a little deeper. And the depth of that pattern is how good you are at what you're doing. When you practice, that happens, the neurons fire, and they create a little pattern. But here's the interesting thing. When you sleep, when you go to sleep that night, their neurons refire through all of the patterns from everything you did that day, and they just refire while you're sleeping. So if you only practice once a week, that refiring of the neurons to make that path deeper, to make you better at whatever it is, only happens once that week. Whereas if you practice for 10 minutes, 7 times that week, it'll happen 7 times, because of every time you go to sleep. I'm assuming you go to sleep at night. I mean, most people do. Anytime you sleep, that's really when you're learning. Practice more frequently, even if it's less time. So that's pretty much it. Leave me some suggestions in the comments. If you like my style of conveying information and there's something you want me to cover, comment below. Give me some feedback, whatever you think. Thanks for watching, and I really hope you apply this stuff, because it will help you get better faster. It will help you get more out of your practice time. So yeah, I'll see you next time. My hair is a mess.